Hey everybody, how is it going? And welcome back to the history of video games. My name is Wes, and I am here with Ben. How you doing today, Ben?
I'm doing great. How are you, Wes?
I'm doing pretty dang good myself. Any day that I have spaghetti and sausage is a good day, you know?
I thought that was every day.
It is most days. Uh, but you know, it just means I'm living a happy life. But
Yeah.
but why don't we get back on track with what we're here to talk about? Do you want to tell us what games you've been playing recently?
I don't know if I want to, but I will. So I was thinking a lot about. I was playing RimWorld, right? I still haven't beaten it, but I gotta get back to it. But I was also thinking about that kind of God game thing that I wanted to play or make myself, right? Kind of a game I was thinking about making.
Right.
And I was thinking back to like the first. I say God game, but it's not a God game, but like the first kind of like you're controlling villagers kind of game. You know, it's a small group of people, kind of like RimWorld, and they all have like stats and stuff. You need to keep care of them and build up your little village or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I specifically remember playing one. This was probably in like elementary school, like way long time ago. And I remember being really attached to it, but I completely forgot the name. But I kind of figured it was by Big Fish Games because at the time, I don't know if it was like its own launcher or something, but we definitely like my family had a lot of Big Fish games. Like my mom would play the almost like Clue kind of mystery games or
Oh,
like
yeah, okay.
hidden item in the background kind of games, stuff like that.
Right, like a point and click adventure almost, or
Right. So they did those, and then I played this one, and I didn't remember exactly what it was called, but I knew it was probably Big Fish Games, so I started looking through their site for stuff, and I found one called My Tribe, and I was like, oh, that's got to be it. Although they also have one called Virtual Villagers, which could be it as well, but I went with My Tribe, and I realized it was on Steam for $10, so I was like, hey, I'll just pick that up because I remember it being like really, really good, like me really enjoying it, and so I picked it up, and I want to say first of all, when they put it on Steam, they did not really update it for the new computers.
oh no.
So the resolution is like atrocious because it must be meant for skinnier monitors or something. Not that I have an ultra wide, but everything looks really distorted.
Right.
And there's no options with that. So that was a little annoying. And one thing I did remember about the game is it's partly real time. So like building a building takes like 24 real life hours, and the game kind of like runs even when it's closed. I'm sure it doesn't actually run, but
It's crunching the numbers, right?
it's crunching numbers, right? Yeah. So you can't just like do everything you want to in one go, which is fine. But I was playing it a little bit, just kind of getting started, and it's real weird because you forget like old games. Like there is no tutorial. There was like like a nicely artistic text file essentially that was like, here's what you want to be doing. And it seems like I wasn't sure if it was multiplayer or if it had like combat or anything like that, but it seems to be mainly just like you want to get a bunch of villagers. There's some quote unquote mysteries on the island you need to solve, which it sounds cool. And then I think a lot of the buildings and stuff you can get are just for trophies, or achievements in the
Oh,
game,
okay.
which is fine. So yeah, I just got it today, and because you can't really play it, um, I just started basically. But I'll keep checking in on it and doing some stuff. I'm interested to see what you need to build like a science station to get the research panel unlocked. So I'm interested to see what the research panel looks like and what you can do with that. Oh, yeah, we'll see. It's not exactly how I remember it, but uh, I'm glad I got it though, because it's a part of like what I would be influenced by when I make my own game or something like that. So
Right.
the core concept is there. It's like you have a small group of people and you can move them around and assign them different things. They have priorities. A lot of it's very similar to RimWorld in a sense. It's just like a lot slower.
Yeah, that's weird. I guess I get that kind of design. It's interesting, but it just sounds like you're kind of like logging on to make decisions for construction and then heading out and letting it like pan
Right.
out.
Right. Which I think it was probably a style of game at the time because I remember even maybe having one that was like a fish feed, like basically just an aquarium, and you just would log on and feed your fish every day. And I
Oh,
remember
okay.
like loving it, and like you can eventually get like a lionfish or something. You're like, oh yeah, I want that.
That's funny.
It's weird. It's definitely a niche thing, but Big Fish Games at the time was like that's what they did, and they did it well. So,
Huh.
but I remember this one specifically because you had a little bit more interaction with like the villager part of it. It wasn't just like a fish; it was just like there aesthetically, right? You can actually move them around and pick them up and throw them down in some place, and that to me is a lot more like kind of god gamey because you can kind of influence the direction of things.
Right. Nice. That sounds pretty cool. Hopefully, there's a research table lets you do a little bit more, something more interesting than just new
Right.
buildings for trophies. But
Right.
either way,
Yeah, we'll
sounds
see.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll definitely let you guys know what it's like next week. But it's weird. The Steam reviews were all really positive, so I was like, I didn't even really look. I was just like, oh yeah, I'll definitely get it.
People must remember it fondly, like the same way
Yeah.
that you do.
But what have you been up to, Wes?
Well, so I got another great one. I caved, and I think the same day it released, but not pre-ordered. I bought Mass Effect Legendary Edition. I
Isn't
don't,
that the same thing, Wes? You have to wait
yeah.
for the reviews to come out.
Oh no, you know what? I did wait one day because it was
Okay.
getting mixed reviews, and I was like, "What are all these reviews that people are giving it negative for?" And then it was all stuff I didn't care about, which like kind of sucks. But I was also kind of like, sorry, it's ultra widescreen problems. It doesn't affect me too much. And then the next day, it was up to like very positive reviews on Steam. So
Nice.
I am getting straight back into the Mass Effect trilogy. I am a huge fan of the original series. So as soon as I saw this was being announced, I was kind of like pretty much going to buy that, unless it's horribly buggy and unplayable.
Hmm.
And so far, it has absolutely delivered, at least for what my expectations were. And to be fair, part of my reason for buying it was just that I could finally get all three of the games on one launcher, which just makes it so much more convenient than having to remember my old Origin account, which is like locked behind an old email and all that to get into Mass Effect
Yep.
3. But the remastered visuals on Mass Effect 1 are also really good. It definitely still looks like Mass Effect 1, but the facial animations and the characters, it feels a lot more like you're seeing the exact same companions that you are in 2 and 3.
Hmm.
And thankfully, the character customization they made a lot better in the original Mass Effect. I remember my first time playing through the series, I played through Mass Effect 1. And of course, one of the huge things about Mass Effect is that you can import characters that kind of like have all the stuff that you gathered or like the decisions that you made brought into the next game. And any character that you made in Mass Effect 1 just looked like some inhuman, ungodly being whenever it was in Mass Effect 2. Like,
Right.
you could tell the customization options like weren't up to snuff. And they did let you remake your character even if you imported a Mass Effect 2, to be fair. But yeah, so I'm glad that this character actually looks normal ish. And it's super fun to be playing through Mass Effect 1 again, even though it's the one with the gameplay is probably my least favorite out of all three of them. But they made the shooting feel a lot better. They made the cover system a lot better. And I haven't noticed it, which I think is a compliment. Like, it just feels like a smoother experience. I don't really have much to complain about other than the way the gameplay always was with like the grindy visiting all the planets and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's really good so far. I think I'm going to try to like fully play all three of them. I could just do the fast route and get through the main story of Mass Effect 1 to get to Mass Effect 2. but the dang completionist in me, I want to explore every single star system
Yeah.
before I do. And I know that you get extras if you import a character who's like explored everything into Mass Effect 2. Um, Even though I think it's only like, hey, now you start with like 20,000 extra credits or something like that. Like, not a huge difference maker. But either way, I'm just loving it so far. That universe, I'm a sucker for. I've played through the series
Hmm.
twice. Um, really, any excuse to get back into it, and especially when it's easy to play, it flows so easily between all three games. And I get all the DLCs that I didn't have before because I didn't feel like paying for them, rolled into the price of this one, which feels especially nice for Mass Effect 3, which I guess is probably 4 years old by now or something like that. But those DLCs were probably still pretty expensive up until the release of Legendary Edition. So it feels nice to be getting all those.
Nice. Yeah, man. Those games are so good. I beat 1 and 2. Do I have 3? I don't know if I have 3, but definitely went through 1 and 2 and loved them. So good. I put them up there with like. You still haven't played Dragon Age, right? We need to get you on that.
No, I'm sure I'd love it too, because I mean, it's
The
also
original.
like
Yeah.
classic BioWare RPG, right? Like, I mean, I
Yeah.
know I love Knights of the Old Republic, so I feel like I'd be into that.
Yeah, it's so good. I played through all that. And they're big too. I mean, Mass Effect is obviously huge as well, but it's easily one of those like over 100-hour kind of playthroughs. So super, super good. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, yeah, I'll report back in, and hopefully sometime in the near future, I actually make it to Mass Effect 2 if I don't get lost exploring planets the whole time.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
But I think we should probably start moving on over into our special topic, right?
Yeah.
So today we are going to talk about a company called North Star, and specifically a computer that they come out with in 1978 or very late 1977 called the North Star Horizon. But the company North Star was founded in June of 1976 in Berkeley, California by Mark Greenberg and Charles Grant. And one weird tidbit we found about it is that apparently its original name was Kentucky Fried Computers, even though they were from Berkeley, California, and they had to change because there was impending litigation from the real KFC. How they got from Kentucky Fried Computers to North Star, I have no idea, but they mainly worked in developing like serial bus 100 computers, and Ben has a lot of information about the specs of the Horizon, the specific one we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so the Horizon's like the first real computer that they came out with, and I think they were really kind of going for that hobby market. I see a lot of ads for it in a lot of the magazines we do. So it seems to be fairly popular among hobbyists, and part of that's the specs. And I don't think it sold well like a general person because it didn't have everything. It was like one of these kits. You could get it pre-assembled, but I bet most people got it in the kit form, and it didn't come with a keyboard or a like display monitor. So you're just getting the computer, just the box, which you kind of need those other things, I think. But unless you're like a hardcore hobbyist, I guess, and could just like look at the output or whatever. Um, so yeah, it's a little weird, but it's cool. So looking at some of the specs for it, inside of it we had a Zilog Z80. That's kind of normal. We've seen other computers with it. It's a very popular microprocessor, pretty powerful. I did read that I think maybe when they were prototyping this computer, it was originally going to have an 8080 in it. So for some reason, they switched to the Zilog at some point. One of its main selling points was that it was one of the first computers to have a built in floppy drive, which does sound pretty relevant.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely kind of on the cutting edge there. It's weird though, because a lot of the other computers, I'm sure you could plug in a floppy drive kind of peripheral for.
Yeah.
So it's not like it was above the other computers because it had one. It was just like built in, so it was a little easier, I guess. But it is kind of strange that that was like one of the main selling points when you could just get one for the other computers. But yeah, I guess you had to spend more money for them. And because this was like a kit at the same time, you had a lot of this stuff, but it was kind of cheap. So I guess it is a selling point. But so it had the floppy drives. It had big power supply. It had lots of places for RAM. It used the S100 bus system, which allows like a lot of different parts to be added and changed around really easily. So that's all good. It ran on NS DOS, which included North Star Basic, their own version of Basic, which was I think very similar to just the normal Basic. Um, so yeah, it's not like great. It's like basic. That's on there. But it's okay, I guess. And then one of the other things that I found about it, which I thought was kind of cool, it's actually one of the first computers to also be released with a hard disk version.
Hard disk storage, so yeah, like a hard drive, I would assume.
Yeah, so it's one of the first ones to basically be released with a hard drive. And that's really cool. I actually read a testimonial that said that you could kind of like daisy chain hard drives. But if you did, the power supply would be so ginormous that the actual lights in your like house would like dim when you turned it on.
Right, yeah.
Which is pretty cool. But it's weird. I wouldn't say the insides are like totally insane. You know, they're kind of normal. The main thing it's got going for it is a floppy drive like built in. But then you're just looking at this really heavy box with no monitor.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, like there's some basic games written for the system, but that's not like super good, right? So there's not so many games that we're going to be covering for this.
Yeah, and I don't know, another maybe an aesthetic reason that you would buy this is that the first versions of it, instead of having a metal case, the outside case of the computer was made out of plywood with like
Right.
nice, or I saw one source say it was like varnished like walnut. So some kind of actual wood on the computer. And I don't know how protected it was from the inside, but I think someone along the line said like that might be a safety hazard. So they've started putting a metal case on it.
Right.
Oh, and I just wanted to say that I did find another reason they might not have been too many games on this is apparently the way that North Star kind of stored data on their floppy disks was different than a lot of other companies. They did something called hard sectored floppy disks, where they would physically punch holes in the disk, and that sort of like marked where a different section of information was to the computer. And it was this weird thing where I guess like a lot of floppies have one hole punched in them for the index, but this would have like 11 holes punched in it, and like nobody else did that. So if you wanted it to run on this computer, you had to go through that whole process. And I think a lot of people just didn't do that to port over software.
Weird. I've never heard of that.
I know, yeah, I had no idea. And I mean, that's just my like 10-minute skimming understanding of it. So there's probably more to it, but that's what it sounded like at least.
Right. Yeah. Super weird, but I mean for the hardcore hobbyists, it seems like it was fairly popular. So they definitely had a little market, a little niche carved out. But you know, because it's seen a lot in our magazines, and there are going to be some basic games that we're talking about in the second half today, we thought it'd be a good time to look at it because we haven't really mentioned this company before. They will come out with another computer later, but not many more after that. So just going to be seeing them for a little bit. But yeah, popular at this time for sure. And with that, why don't we take a break and get into the games? All right, welcome back. I hope you guys enjoyed that wonderful piece of music, or terrible piece of music. Who knows?
Oh, it would never
We
be
don't
terrible.
know. I've had some bad ones. That's for sure. When you do a song every week, I mean,
That's true. They
you
they
know,
can't all be good ones.
yeah. So, but maybe that was a good one. Who knows? Maybe last week was a bad one.
Right. Yeah.
But let's start by talking about these North Star Horizon games. As I mentioned before, they're like all basic games. So a lot of them we've already looked at or have heard of. Nothing that we really wanted to rate, but I wanted to list off some of the stuff that they have. It's a lot of stuff like Hercule, Reverse, Stars, Chomp. These are basic 101 games that we've seen like a million times. They had they kind of divided into two game volumes that you could get, which I'm guessing were either discs or like floppies. But the games volume 2 had stuff like Button Frog, Civil War, you know, we've seen that before, Chase, Golf, Lunar Lander. I mean, we've seen all of these before.
Yeah.
Nothing too nice, but you know, it was probably played by a lot of people, but they did have to have their own like little North Star basic version of them, so definitely not all of the games made it over to that system.
Yeah. Seems a little bit inconvenient, but for the hobbyists and people who like North Star, at least they had something they could play on there.
Mm-hmm. I think it was pretty easy to install a new version of Basic on there, to be fair.
Okay. Gotcha. So there were some options with it.
Mhm.
But let's get to a game that I got to review and is a lot easier to play, I must say. For the Atari 2600 in November of 78, we have Breakout, which,
Oh, yeah.
as you might expect, is Breakout. But I had almost forgotten until this point. We've seen so many other Breakout clones that we hadn't got to the Breakout on the Atari 2600 yet.
I know. It seems weird that it hasn't happened yet. It should be like one of the first ones that they come out with, right? But
It really should be, but I gotta say, I was surprised. I mean, something about the classic Breakout, I'm definitely a fan of. And this didn't feel like too old for me, despite all of the Breakout clones that we've seen.
right.
But for the Atari 2600, we're lucky that there are a lot of sites that have great information on this, including a ton of commercials. Some of them, there's one where there's a guy pretending to be James Bond meeting with like his arch nemesis, and they sit down to play a version of Space Invaders and hang out and stuff like that to advertise the Atari console. So there's lots of great stuff if you want to just go trudging through the Atari 2600 ads. The art on the front of this cartridge, though, is also a little bit weird to me. It's two people with rackets. And I guess because the first Breakout game was sort of like, maybe I'm getting it mixed up with Blockade in my head, but for whatever reason, I don't think tennis when I think Breakout. I think of
Yeah,
like,
it's the prisoner breaking out of a brick wall.
yeah, that's what
It's
I was
like
thinking
Prison
of.
Break themed.
Exactly. Yeah. But this is just, I guess they gave into it. One guy has a Pong paddle and the other guy has a tennis racket. So
Hmm.
I guess it's basically Pong. They figured they couldn't get away from that imagery. So I just thought that was a little bit weird. But there was also this interesting thing where Breakout and Breakthrough, I guess, weren't ever trademarked under those names. So around this time when this released, Atari had them trademarked to describe this type of gameplay. And Breakthrough, I'll describe once I get into the gameplay for this, but it's basically Atari's version of a clean sweep type game.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what that'll mean for other people who try to do like Outbreak or whatever and just switch the words around. I guess they're
Right.
safe, but maybe they'll have to describe it as Breakout style gameplay or something. Getting into the gameplay for this cartridge, it's Breakout for a home console. It's got 12 different modes. And I gotta say, pretty faithful to actually being 12 different game modes compared to what Atari usually claims. There are 6 layers to break, and the objective of the game is to break 2 walls total. So clear one, it refreshes to a new screen, and then clear that one with 5 balls or lives, basically. And so modes 1 to 4 in this were, one is a typical style Breakout game, just everything normal. 2 is Breakout, except you can move the ball around after it bounces off your paddle. And you do that just by moving your paddle around once it leaves the paddle. 3 is Breakout with the ability to catch the ball, hold it as long as you want, and then release it. And then 4 is Breakout, except all the bricks are invisible and they only show up for a split second whenever they're hit. And then modes 5 through 8 are the exact same, except instead of playing for high score, you have to break as much blocks as you can within a certain time limit. So not too much different there, but it is nice. There's sort of like a different goal. It's high score or see if you can beat the game in that time, not just whoever gets the highest score, I guess. And then modes 9 through 10 are all the same variants as those previous 4, but they're the breakthrough game mode instead, where the ball doesn't bounce after hitting a brick, but just goes straight through them. And then just for some general stuff to differentiate this from other variants Breakout that we've seen, there are no modes for like gaps or holes between the bricks in this, like we've seen in some other clones. All of these modes could be played 1, 2, 3, or 4 player, which is crazy because usually I would think Atari would say that means they have 48 game modes.
Right.
But
they missed a chance there.
Yeah. And amazingly enough, 4-player game mode, 3-player game mode, and 2-player, they are not just turn taking. 2-player basically is. But if you go 3-player, you have 2 players on one team and then 1 player on the other team. And whenever you're on a team with another player, you're both on the screen at the same time, but you can only move half of the screen. So each person gets their own half, but you're still working towards the same wall. And then it ends up being the same thing when you do a 4-player for any of these modes. It's just 2v2. So that makes it a lot better. I mean, a 4-player match where you don't have to wait 4 different screens is going to be a lot more fun and engaging than if you did just have to turn take for all 4 players.
Mm-hmm.
This also has the classic space above the wall at the top of the screen, so you can do the beautiful thing where the ball breaks through and then bounces all over the top and breaks all the red bricks up there. The paddle also shrinks like it does in the arcade version, either to like half or 3/4 the size once you break through the top red layer. And the ball also moves differently when it hits different sides of the paddle. And according to the manual, if it hits the same side of the paddle like 7 times consecutively, the angle slightly changes the way it bounces off, which is crazy to me. And I don't know how you would ever actually get that to happen, but apparently they make it so it doesn't.
If it's like stuck somehow.
Yeah, and I think you can get into a thing in Breakout where you just move between 2 positions and it constantly bounces in a loop, you know? So I guess eventually you could get it out of that loop so it could hit like 1 block floating in the middle of space that you couldn't hit otherwise. So some interesting stuff there. Some of that probably in the arcade version, but all replicated pretty well in this version of it. So getting into my ratings for graphics, it is just the plain old Breakout graphics we've come to expect. But I felt like I had to give it a 2.5 out of 10 just because it looks really good. The ball and paddle just move very smoothly across the screen. There's 6 different colors for all the bricks, and they all look very good and vibrant. The black background and gray borders are very plain, but just something about the classic look of those 6 different colored bricks is really nice. And there's also different paddle colors for each of the players. So you'll have 2 different colored paddles on screen when you have 2 players on one team, which is really nice. The ball also changes color as it goes through the different brick sections of the screen, which looks really nice when it's moving really fast. And I don't know, maybe it was just the visual nostalgia, but there's not much going on, but it just kind of looks really crisp and good. Then for sounds, I gave it a 1.5 out of 10. It's a Breakout game, so I knew it was going to be just bong noises, and it basically is. But there are, I think, 5 different beeps that play, depending on like when the ball bounces and how many times it bounces consecutively. But there's no sound when you lose a ball, which is really strange, like no buzzer or anything like that. But overall, I do like the beeps in this type of game. I mean, it kind of fits and it works well. And you do get nice moments where you have tons of audio because it's just bouncing like 50 times off the wall and in between some bricks. And breakthrough, where there's no ricocheting off the blocks, is just like insane because you hit like 10 blocks within like a second and a half. So it's just like this really fast spurt of beeps that sounds hilarious. And I really like that. I would have liked a tune at the start of the game or something, but even without that, it still works pretty well. And then for gameplay, here's why I went a little bit crazy. I gave it a 4 out of 10. I feel like we've seen so much Breakout, but I feel like Atari knows what makes it fun, and they know how to make it more fun when it's on a home console. For me, I don't really care about the timed modes that much, but it is nice that they're there as a gameplay variation. I do really like that you can basically put the English on it, like you could with the Odyssey in the movable ball mode. And I think that the catch is a really nice variation too. And I think adding Breakthrough to the list just kind of really takes it to the next level, and that the multiplayer modes aren't just solely turn taking. So overall, it just felt like this really solid Breakout game package, especially for a home console, um, so that I didn't mind, even though it was just Breakout. And then for relevance, I also kind of went a little crazy here. I don't know. I was feeling Breakout today, I guess. I gave it an 8 out of 10, but that's mainly because as soon as I saw this image of what the console Breakout looks like, I'm pretty sure this is the iconic Breakout that people remember. Like, it looks more like Breakout than the arcade Breakout does to me, because the blocks are all connected. There's no spaces between them. And it just has that like iconic feel. And the fact that it brought it to people's homes, I think probably helped popularize Breakout even more. Although I'm sure since it came out in 76 or 75, whenever it came out, it was already pretty popular. And I also think it switched up the Breakout formula in a few ways that we haven't seen done in clones. So they're still innovating on their own product, which is nice. So overall, that left me with a 3 out of 10. It's just a super solid console version of Breakout. It has everything you'd want from the gameplay for me. Has some fun extra modes that you could try out with friends. And once you buy it, you're not plugging in quarters to an arcade cabinet to compete for high score. You can just compete with your friends for high score and your siblings. Really, the only thing that bummed me out was the sound. But other than that, I felt like it's really delivered in gameplay and graphics.
Yeah, man.
And I'm a Breakout fiend, even though I don't like playing it that much, I guess. It's just the idea of it, you know?
Yeah. You know what's interesting about it? First of all, so I just did Super Breakout not too long ago, which is an arcade version, right? And it had 3 variations. And this one has 12. And the arcade version had a color overlay, and this one's in true color. And it's on a console. I was like, man, that arcade version just sucked, huh?
That's kind of what I'm thinking. Like, I think I rated the first Breakout arcade pretty well, but I'm looking at this, and as soon as I played it, I'm like, wait, no, this is like the Breakout, it feels like.
Right. Yeah, I don't think on the arcade versions the bricks are usually like 3 different colors. So the fact that there's 5 or 6 here really
6,
gives them
yeah.
kind of a little bit more of a rainbow kind of look to it, which I really like.
That's right. Yeah, because it's usually 2 rows of each color in the arcade version.
Right. Yeah, so yeah, it's a cool one. It might very much be the most popular version to date, and that's saying a lot.
Yeah, especially considering how many clones we've already seen of Breakout. I'm interested to see how many new console clones we're going to see for it as well.
Yeah. You know what? The other thing I wanted to get your opinion on, Wes, are we like at that moment now where Pong is just not a thing? It's just like Breakout now.
I mean, maybe. Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting to the point where we're almost tired of Breakout. So
That's right.
maybe that's a sign. Yeah, but I other than like first gen consoles that are still straggling, I don't know if we've seen a Pong game super recently.
Yeah, I don't think we have.
Oh, fingers crossed, Ben. That's
Yeah. Well, I don't want to spoil anything.
Uh-oh.
But let's move on. The next one here, this one's called Attacker Ace by Nichibutsu, and it came out sometime in November of '78. And I think it's a Breakout clone. We only had a flyer for it, so I really just don't know. But this is an arcade version of Breakout.
And then next we have the Byte magazine for November. Just 2 notable things here. The first one is Chess 0.5 for Pascal, which is basically just playing chess in the Pascal language. And this weird thing, which isn't video game related, but we had to throw it in there. It had instructions for like how to set up a camera or a scanner peripheral that you have for your computer to use as a home security alarm system. So I guess someone came up with the code to have it actually function as some sort of alarm system, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, in 78. Pretty
Yeah,
cool.
it seems nuts.
All right, moving on. We got the Soft Side Magazine November. This is a pretty new magazine for us, but we are going to be seeing it pretty often. They mainly focus on TRS 80 games. So looking at the first one, it was called Trolls Gold. And this one's really interesting. I almost debated rating it. Imagine like a Donkey Kong setup. So you got like a bunch of levels, right? Kind of vertical levels that you can kind of go up and down in between. Except instead of Donkey Kong, you're at the top. There's a monster kind of like in Advanced Dragon Maze, the dragon or whatever. There's a monster at the bottom right beside a pile of gold. And every turn, you move and then the monster moves and then you move and you have to basically outmaneuver it to get to the gold and then get back up. So it sounds kind of cool. I did try to play it and it runs really bad.
Oh
so
no.
um it must take like 30 seconds to make a move. Yeah.
Oof.
And it's weird too because it's almost like you don't always have every direction available to you. Like it's almost like each compartment and each floor or whatever, the doors kind of open and close in between turns, and then depending on whatever's open, that's what you have, and you can just kind of choose to stay and get another assortment of doors or whatever open for the next turn. But you don't always have every path available to you, but the like quote unquote animation for opening and closing the doors would take like 30 seconds. So super weird. Yeah, I was like, I'm not gonna do that.
That sounds a little torturous. Yeah.
The next one here is called Time Bomb. This one's kind of like Hunt the Wumpus, except we don't have a Humpus to want or a Wumpus to hunt. It's weird. This one, you're basically in some like weird arbitrary shape that is made from like a 3D path, but you're really only looking at like you've got a character in the middle and then some paths in a couple different directions that they can go to, and it'll say like there's a bomb on path 64 and you're on path 1 and you have to try to get there, and you can kind of get there by like each path that is available to you has a number associated with it, and generally if you stick to one direction you'll get closer to like that kind of number. So it's this weird kind of navigating through a random maze without you being able to see the entire maze at once and looking for a bomb. And unlike in Hunt the Wumpus, where the Wumpus can like move around and stuff, the bomb's just stationary, so it's kind of boring, but the graphics on it were decent. The paths are all ASCII paths, and you have a little character that actually like walks down the path in between the paths, which is cool, but kind of okay.
Nice. And then the next one that we have is End Zone, which unfortunately is just a simulation RNG game, although it did have a nice ASCII display of the field. So at least it has that going for it, but you're still just picking plays and then watching them play out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely simulation. And that's going to move us to the first one that I reviewed today. This is a handheld electronic quarterback by Coleco.
Oh.
And hopefully that makes some people really happy because obviously Coleco came out with like the Telstar, right? They were really big in the first gen consoles, probably caused the video game crash of 77. So super important company. And it's weird that they were doing first gen consoles and now they're like starting to get into the handheld market. They saw Mattel like succeed and they're like, hey, we could probably do that. So this is basically their version of Mattel's football. It was a really interesting one to look at because it's similar in a lot of ways, but it has a couple little tweaks that I quite like to it. So basically what you're looking at is just imagine Mattel's version of football. It's just a bunch of LED, striped lines through it, right? You can pass in this game, very similar to the Mattel 2 version. And the general design of like the handheld itself is again pretty similar. It's a little bit more sleek, honestly. It's I don't know, it's like skinnier at the bottom than it is at the top. So it's probably a lot easier to hold in your hand, to be fair. But the gameplay is essentially the same. You're starting from one side of the screen, you're trying to get to the other side. You can either run or pass, and when you pass, like basically in this version, your quarterback just stands still and you can't control it, and then you move the wide receiver, and if you get to a place that's like directly in front of the quarterback further down the field and there's nobody in between, you can hit the pass button and it'll pass the wide receiver. I don't know if I like that or the Mattel Football 2 version of passing better, where you weren't in control of the wide receiver. You were just like scrambling and waiting for him to come open.
Right.
So I'm not sure which one I like better. I probably like the Mattel version better, but it's definitely an interesting version.
Can you run in this version, or is it all just
Yes.
passing? Okay.
Yeah, you can run in this, and the running is really fun. And that's because the main distinction this game has over the Mattel games is that there's basically a center that snaps the ball to you. So instead of your quarterback being right on the front of the line or whatever, he's one step back. So he kind of gets like snap back, and then you're one step back. And then you have, when you run, you have the wide receiver dash and the center dash. And when they move forward, they're going to go forward in a straight line. If they encounter an enemy dash, they'll kind of cancel each other out, and that'll kind of spring holes into the defense like as the game's going.
Yeah.
So I really like that, because I think in the other versions you didn't have like linemen, right? It was just like they just rushed you.
You're just a 2-man offensive team, you know.
Right. So, well, when you ran, I don't think the wide receiver did anything, right?
No. Then it's just the quarterback. Yeah.
But in this one, it's like running, the wide receiver becomes basically a lineman. And you can even move where the linemen are at before the play starts. So you can kind of like make them so that they try to open up holes here and here, for instance, which is cool. And then they take away defenders. So that gives you some places to run the ball. And similarly, if you're doing a passing play, the center will, hit an enemy dash and just remove one of them. But it's a really cool feature, because it feels like there's linemen in the game now, and they're like kind of making holes in the defense. And also because of that, the number of defensive, blips is much higher. I think it went from, 5 to 7, so 2 more. Still probably feels the same once they cancel each other out, but just the fact that they do that makes it cool, in my opinion.
Right, yeah.
It still has that issue that you had with Mattel Football 2, where if you basically go all the way to the end of the screen like wraps, but the defensive people are still there.
Oh yeah.
So that's still there, but it's okay. It is what it is. And there's no playing defense on this. So when you either get a touchdown or have to turn the ball over, you can kick in this, and you just basically play the other side. And I guess it's meant to be kind of like you pass it to your buddy and they play the other side, but you would probably just, if you didn't have anybody to play with, you just play the other side yourself, which is fine. I like that. So yeah, that's kind of it. I mean, the main difference really is just the addition of the linemen and the changes to passing. There is also, I think, an improvement on how the scores are laid out. You can really easily, at any time, basically hit a button that tells you what down it is, how many yards to go, what the score is, how much time is left in the game. This one, it's a 15-minute game time, and then the game's over, which I think in Mattel Football 2, I think you could just play forever, right? I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't think there was any time limit on it.
So I do like a time limit.
Yeah.
To have an end. So that is cool. So it's just a bunch of really small tweaks, but it is by Coleco, and it's going to sell well because of that. And it was funny. I was watching the commercial for it, and it's literally a guy dressed in a costume of the handheld, and then he's talking with a guy dressed in the costume of Mattel Football handheld, and then he's just trashing the Mattel guy. And it's not even like subtle. It's just like the Coleco version has 7 people on defense, while the Mattel version only has 5. It's like super just like in the face of Mattel, which is, I think, a little bit unfair, because Mattel Football 2 was definitely out by this time, so they chose to review it against Mattel Football 1.
Right.
So like, we have passing, and it's like, well, Mattel had passing too at this time, but yeah, it's super fun. maybe the actual space you have to move around is actually larger as well. There's probably, I don't know, I'd say 8 slots up and down that you can kind of move around in. So it's the football that you're familiar with, but a couple of little key things done a little differently. So let me get into my ratings. For gameplay, I gave it a 2.5 out of 10. I think it's pretty fun. I like the changes that they made. It's still kind of like what I remember and what I know from the Mattel versions, but just with those little twists make it interesting. So I enjoyed it. For graphics, I had to just give it a 1.25 out of 10. That's generous because it's just red lines, just the LED light ups. The actual like graphic on the handheld is nothing to be excited about. It's like green, and then you've got basically like a blue striped end zone, and that's it. And there's no like 3D stands like the Mattel one has. So yeah, it's just whatever. For sounds, I had to give it a 1.5. It's the weird bleeps and bloops that we know from like Mattel handhelds. They're basically the exact same. It's weird. Sometimes it'll kind of sound like almost music because it'll be like, and be like, wait, was that a tune? Like, I don't know.
Right.
It's always really short though. So I don't know. I would say they're more bleeps, bloops, and sounds, but they don't happen a lot. It's mostly like a ticking sound, and you occasionally get those little beeps when someone scores or like a fourth down has happened. So nothing too good there. And then relevance, I gave it a 6.5 out of 10. It's one of Coleco's first handhelds, one of the first unique ones. We have covered other ones before. They came out with like a Mastermind handheld, and I want to say like basically a calculator game one. But this is like, a truly unique one that was more game than calculator. So
Right.
that to me is important, and it marks maybe the first real success and the first real market, considering it's got commercials and stuff that Coleco was able to run with. So that's cool. And then overall, I gave it a 2 out of 10. Had to get it up to a 2. It's very good, but very reminiscent of the Mattel 2 versions. But I think I do like it a little better, but very similar.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it definitely sounds like there's more to do in that one. As fun as Mattel Football 2 is, the running options and stuff like that, that's cool.
Yeah, I think the linemen really do it.
Yeah, just like they said in the commercial, right?
Basically.
And speaking of comebacks, first we got Coleco, and now we have another Fairchild Channel F video cart to take a look at.
You mean they're not dead yet, Wes?
What? They're still hanging around.
The very first, second gen.
Yeah, and somehow, they're still putting games out. These are the last ones of the year that we're going to talk about, but this one that I'm mentioning right now, Video Whizball.
Yeah, I do want to say, actually, before you get started, I did see that these were probably prototypes, not actually released in 78, but they were made in 78.
Okay, so caveat there. And either way, this is still a great one. I think even if it came out early 79, I would still be pretty favorable to this one. So a little bit of background on the art for this. I just thought the cartridge box art was hilarious because most times, a pinball pong type game, they do like some wacky sci-fi scenario to make it look like super exciting. Not Fairchild. They just put an image of like paddles shooting square balls at giant blocks, and that's what the game is. So they painted it very realistically on the cartridge. But I want to talk about the gameplay for Video Whizball because it is this weird, interesting mashup of a hockey and pong type game and then a target and shooting type game. Similar to, I'm forgetting the name, but I think an older Fairchild Channel F game we took a look at before where you're kind of shooting objects to get them into the opposing player's goal to get points instead of like bouncing something into their goal.
That was actually an Atari prototype we looked at. I forget the name too, though.
Okay, yes, but the one where you shoot them and then they could also like fly around the wall in the center or whatever it was,
Mm-hmm.
I think. But in this one, you have to shoot boulders, which are gigantic squares in this case, to move them into the opponent's goal. They're huge, they gain momentum with successive hits, and unlike anything we've seen before, they kill you if you get hit by them. So if you get hit by one of these giant square boulders, your character is out of commission for a while. And you can also shoot your opponent with one of the things that you're using to hit the boulders around, and the same thing happens. They disappear for a while. And that time is actually pretty long, but the person will also respawn if someone makes a goal. So there was a couple occasions where I was watching somebody play this where both players got hit by a boulder and the boulders just kind of bounced around until one of them went into a goal and then both players came back. So it's nice that they have that in there. So if you shoot someone, you don't just get free scores on them for like the next 30 seconds, you know. And this also had 6 different game modes. One of them was the boulders are all worth 1 point, and then you could play this with or without guided missiles, which, you know, was basically steering the bullet around. The other was boulders accrue points the longer they're on screen, up to 4. So they would all start out as 1 point boulders and they would have a big 1 on them. But the longer they stay on screen without getting scored, the more points they get, up to 4. And this could also be played with or without guided missiles. And then the last set of game modes was basically the same thing, except instead of going all the way up to 4, they could go all the way up to 9 points per boulder, and then with or without guided missiles. You could play 2-player or 1-player versus AI, and according to the manual, you could also play 0-player if you wanted to, which I assume just means start the game and then let it go to screensaver mode and let the AI fight each other.
That's cool.
Which, yeah, honestly, I mean, it's not like a real gameplay feature, but it's kind of nice. It'd be cool to just like watch the AI duke it out and like bet Monopoly money on them or something, you know? You could also, for all of these game modes, choose how many boulders you wanted to be on screen at the same time, or maximum, because they spawn in one at a time, up to 4 boulders max. So with all that being said, I want to get into my ratings for Video Whizball. For graphics, I gave it a 1.5 out of 10. I mean, we kind of know what we're getting into with the Fairchild Channel F by now. The graphics are a little limited. Everything is kind of square. We have the typical red, green, blue, and white for all the colors that the Fairchild can do, and it uses them pretty well, but I do think Video Whizball kind of looks pretty good for a Fairchild game. It has some of the visual stutters that we see in other Fairchild games, but considering the boulders can move pretty fast, it does a pretty good job of like actually being able to see them. And the giant displayed numbers that show up on the boulders in the bonus point modes also look good without making like the whole console run like trash, which, you know, sometimes I'm a little worried whenever they add extra detail in a Fairchild game. So I think it does a pretty competent job and it looks decent and it does have some nice color, but still it doesn't look fantastic. Then for sounds, same thing here. I give it a 1 out of 10. We know that there's not going to be super great sounds on the Fairchild. There's a bunch of beeps and buzzes that we're used to, but I do appreciate there's kind of a big variety of beeps and buzzes. There's a little tune that plays when the game starts that is deafeningly loud if you have headphones on, from experience, but you know, just a little like 3-note tune, nice to have, and then probably 5 or 6 different buzzes or beeps depending on like what's being hit where. So I like that variation, but again, we are still just hearing beeps and buzzes, nothing great. For gameplay, though, I did have to give it some credit here, so I gave it a 3 out of 10. This is a concept that we've seen before a little bit in that prototype Atari game that Ben was mentioning, but that was just shooting objects to score, where this has a lot of stuff going on that makes it unique. There's 3 or 6 game variations, depending on how you count it. Guided missile is always a fun way to switch up games where you're shooting bullets at stuff. There's a timed score increase on the boulders, and I think that's a really cool idea because it raises the stakes as long as a boulder isn't scored. And I also like that you can shoot your opponent directly. We haven't seen tons of games that give you like an optional objective that doesn't also immediately give you score. I feel like this
Mm-hmm.
is, you shoot your enemy, you don't get anything for it except the opportunity to score, which is really interesting. Just kind of a nice gameplay dynamic we don't see a ton. And the tug of war style of this game, because you're basically shooting the blocks at each other over and over, trying to get the right angle of momentum to get them to fly in, is surprisingly fun. It's the type of game where you can only have one bullet on screen at a time for each player. So you're really at a disadvantage when it's on the other side of the screen, but they let you press that fire button as fast as you can when the boulder's right up in your face. So you can like spam the heck out of it to get it to go away from you at the last second, which is really satisfying. And they also let you not only shoot straight forward towards the enemy goal, but also shoot at an up angle and a down angle. So you can get some really interesting shots off to bounce the bullets around to knock the boulders into the enemy goal. So even though it's not the most exciting thing on paper or when you're just looking at the concept, I think it would really be fun to go head to head with friends. It's got like that competitive feel, and maybe it's just because you can shoot the other player, it kind of makes it even like more aggressive and competitive, which I think is really good. And it feels like it fits a home console perfectly too. Like it's just a good game to hang out with or hang out and butt heads with your friends on. So for relevance, I gave it a 6 out of 10. I just think it's a really unique spin on a bunch of game types we've seen before. It's not really a game type I feel like I've seen a lot now, but I just love that it has its own unique feel and kind of gives the Fairchild more historical importance as like this weird thing that showed up on the Fairchild Channel F and we haven't seen anywhere else yet. And overall, that left me with a 1.75 out of 10. It's a weird but great game for the Fairchild. And I feel like it's, if we're wrapping up the catalog for 78, this is a good way to do it. I wouldn't say it's the best game ever or anything, but it's this unique spin on Pong games that's executed really well and feels fun to play on a Fairchild, which we can't always say for some of the games they put out.
Right. But I mean, to be fair, I feel like the last couple ones, like we did Dodgeball, I think last, that was good.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So they're still in there.
definitely. I saw a lot of people comparing this to Dodgeball as well because the you can't move your character around, but the other than up and down, but the boulders are still bouncing all around, so it blends that in there nicely too. They always have something weird up their sleeve.
Yeah. This game does a really great job of solving a problem I had with the Atari prototype, which is that the Atari prototype only had one boulder and you couldn't kill each other. So you were just locked in on that boulder. And it was really hard to like actually score because it would get toward your opponent's side and then they would shoot faster. And it was a giant
Right.
boulder. So they always hit. But with 4 boulders on the screen, like this one's got, it really ups the hecticness. And that makes for some fun times for sure, I think.
Definitely. And you did just make me think of seems like a very common situation where the game starts out, you only have one boulder and it's basically at a stalemate in the middle of the
Right.
screen because you're both shooting at each other. And then as soon as the second one spawns in, you're like, oh crap, do I keep shooting this one? Do I jump up to that one? What's the other player going to do? So it just totally adds this really nice new dynamic to it.
Definitely. All right, cool. Well, let's talk about one more video card here. This is the last one for 78. It's bowling. I did think about reviewing it just because I like the Fairchild, but we have some other cool stuff we got to check out too today. But this one is one of these bowling games where it's like timing based, where the bowling ball kind of goes left to right across the bottom of the lane, and then when it's in the middle, you basically hit the fire button and it goes down. The middle,
Right.
I do think you can put English on it so you can steer it a little bit, which is cool. And probably my favorite part of the game is that after the ball knocks down the pins, it kind of returns to you in a little animation of it going down the gutter, which is great.
Oh, nice.
So, considering it's a Fairchild, it's like pretty decent. So, I did enjoy bowling. But, Wes, why don't you get us started on the actual, big hitter for today?
Yeah, absolutely. The namesake for our episode, we are going to take a look at all the 78 Videobrain computer games that we had. Videobrain, if you don't remember last time we talked about it, I believe was the crazy, weird gladiator game,
Oh yeah.
which it true or not claimed to have, I think, like 300 game modes or something because of all the different variations. But
Right.
it did definitely have 3 really fun game modes. But the ones we're going to be checking out today, we're starting out with checkers, which is just a game of checkers with 4 different opponents for different difficulties created by Dr. Arthur Samuel, who was a professor at Stanford University at the time. And the board was actually displayed on the screen, and you could move your cursor using a joystick to select what piece to move. So, with 4 different types of opponents and actually being able to move the checker around, it feels like one of the most advanced checkers that we've seen so far on a computer.
And I do want to say, I think Arthur Samuel was one of the guys who made one of the first ever video games, a checkers game in like 58 or something like that. So they went to the great guy.
Absolutely, yeah. Get him to make your the checkers game if you want it to look good on your computer.
That's like episode 1 level stuff. That's so far back.
The next one that we have for the Videobrain is Lemonade Stand, which is the classic lemonade stand type game, just a profit decision making, supply and demand kind of game. Nothing too interesting in the visuals or anything there.
Great if you like Hammurabi.
Exactly.
And then we've got Pinball. I did think about rating this one because it's a pinball game that actually uses the flippers and not a pong paddle at the bottom, which is kind of rare nowadays, it feels. But this version of pinball, I couldn't play it because whenever the ball hits a bumper, the entire screen changes to another color. And there's times when the ball's just like going back and forth between bumpers really fast. So it's like, if you want to get a seizure, then yeah, play this game. But I was good. I
Yikes.
was like, no, I don't, I don't want to have a seizure right now because the ball can move really fast. And I don't know why they thought changing the entire color of the background to a random different color would be good, but
Yeah, that's poor design choice. Would not fly today.
yeah. It did seem okay though. But the real one I wanted to talk about, tennis. That's right, Pong. Oh no, oh no, we're back. No, this is actually phenomenal, and I loved it.
Whoa.
So what did they do different?
Yeah, that's crazy.
I want to say this is not Pong. No, it is tennis. There's a difference. They both are similar, but like if I talk to someone playing Mario Tennis today and we're like, "How do you like playing Pong?" They'd be like, "What are you talking about? It's not like Pong at all." And similarly, this one's not nearly as much as like Pong as you would think. Everything from like the scoring is done in, I don't know the correct tennis terminology, but I think it's in points. I don't know. Basically, there's like, what is it, 15, 30, 45, like
I think
love
it's
or whatever.
yeah, and then love. Yeah.
It's not exactly like that. Basically, it's like first person to 4 wins that point, and then it's like whoever wins, I think maybe 3 points wins the match.
Okay. Yes.
Even still, like the scoring is more like tennis, which is great. The other thing, there's no pong paddles. You have actual sprites of a human holding a tennis racket, which is great. I think some of you may remember way back, my favorite console of, I think, 76 was the Odyssey 500, which had that. It's just replacing a pong paddle with the sprite of a person with a racket is a major difference
Yeah.
to like what it feels like. But even better than that, whenever you hit the ball, the guy actually does a little animation of putting the racket up to his face, and then it looks like he hit the ball, which is great. Like that's awesome. On top of that, some of the other amazing graphics in this game, you have a ball boy that will put the ball down in between points. It's just like randomly somewhere kind of like in front of where your guy would stand, but it could be like towards the top of the screen, bottom of the screen. But it runs out with a unique animation, puts the ball down and runs out again. And then you actually serve the ball instead of it just, starting randomly from the middle of the screen and coming towards you. And that's how the game starts. You actually can like take your time, eye up your opponent and then hit the hit button and that starts it. So that's great. And I don't know, the ball boy might put the ball down on whatever side. Like I don't know if tennis switches sides, right? I'm pretty sure. I don't know exactly how tennis works.
Yeah. Yeah. It's usually oh geez, I'm gonna mess it up. But if it was your serve, and you don't get a point or you serve wrong, then it moves to the next person. So it switches back and forth at certain times.
On this game, the other person doesn't serve until it's the next point. So the same person will serve multiple times, but they actually switch between, like, if you were looking at a real tennis match, like, sometimes they serve from like the left corner and sometimes they serve from the right corner, right? Or is it just, I think they move. I don't know exactly how it works, but so the ball boy might actually be moving in the correct way here, is what I'm trying to get at. Putting the ball down in the one corner and then moving to the other corner and back again. I'm not totally sure, but it makes it feel more like tennis for sure. And then the other thing that's just incredible, the first time I've ever seen this in a video game, is that you have an audience, which is 5 just heads with like it almost looks like a cowboy because he's got a hat on. So you see him from like the shoulders up, shoulders, head, and a hat, and it's 5 of them in the row, same sprite. But what's amazing is whatever side of the court the ball is on, they'll turn to face that side. So it looks like they're following the ball, which is incredible. It's so good. I love it. So the graphics on this are amazing. The actual gameplay is very similar to Pong, except for how you serve. You do have some variations though, so let me talk about these variations. When you start the game, it says pick numbers 1 to 95, but it's I'll explain what they actually are. So it's not 95 unique ones, obviously, but we do have a couple small variations. One is a fast mode. I looked at it. It doesn't seem much faster than the original, so that one's basically nothing. You have one called Bounce Back, and this one's weird because it's like the ball will hit the net in the middle and bounce back at you, and then the second time you hit it, it'll go over. And then the other person has to hit it, bounce off their net, and then go over. So you have to hit it twice before it goes to your opponent's side for Bounce Back. You then have Curveball. This one, I couldn't tell if it just moves up and down randomly at times or if you can actually put the English on it. I don't know because we only had one video for it and the guy didn't say. So I don't know exactly how the controls work, if it kind of just, curved by itself or if you could put the English on it, but you have a curving one. And then probably my favorite part about this, and unfortunately I did not have a video for this part, but you have a mode called Rush, and in Rush you can actually move in all 4 directions instead of just up and down. So it's the Odyssey style, which for a tennis game makes so much sense. And I wish I knew if there was a running animation or not, because you don't have a running animation when you go up and down, just the vertical Pong style.
Right.
But the ball boy has a running animation. So I want to say if you move horizontally, you might have a running animation, but I don't know for sure. I wish I knew. But the fact that that's even a possibility is awesome to me. So I love that. And then you can also play with, I think it's 1 player versus, do they have AI? I'm not sure. I think it's just 2 player, but then you can also play doubles with 4 player, which is great. So, yeah, doubles looks really fun as well. If you do every single combination of every single one of those variations, it's something like 95. So, but that's basically what it is. And with a lot of them, they have a different color background. So sometimes like the generic version is just like a green background and everything else is white on the screen. But sometimes it's a blue background, sometimes it's red, sometimes it's pink. So it can change the color a little bit, but it's mainly just a 2-color kind of game. But yeah, let me get into my ratings. Let's start with gameplay. I love the gameplay. I give it a 3.25 out of 10. This is like playing tennis. It's not like playing Pong. It feels different and the scoring is different. And I love so much the variations of like 4-player being able to move horizontally. I love the way that character looks and how like it moves and actually hits the ball with the racket, and everything about it just makes for a great gameplay experience. So it's probably one of my favorite versions of, essentially Pong or tennis that we've ever seen. Moving on to graphics, I give this a 3.25 out of 10 as well. It is just 2 colors, but what they do with those 2 colors is incredibly impressive. The resolution is incredibly high. I don't know how they can get it so high, but that's the thing about the Videobrain. Like the Gladiator was the same way. It just looks incredible.
Yeah.
And the animations, like adding the ball boy, adding the audience that looks at the ball and turns their head depending on what side of the court it's on, is awesome. And your character actually holding up the racket whenever they hit the ball, again, super good. So the ball is actually somewhat round as well. Um, but you can definitely tell like you're a dude holding a racket, so it's great. And then sound, this one's a little hard. It's mainly just pong beeps, but you do have a little bit of a musical tune. And you also apparently have a musical tune whenever you win. Although the one video we have of this game, because I couldn't emulate it, um, the guy never played a full match. So I don't know what the end game music sounds like. I know what the beginning sounds like, and it was very short. So I don't know. I gave it like a 2.25 out of 10 because it had some music, but it's mainly pong beeps. So kind of mixed there. For relevance, this is a sad rating, 3.75, because nobody knows about this.
Yeah.
And it didn't sell well. And it's so sad because the games for this computer are just phenomenal, but there's not many of them. There's just not. Like, there's a reason we haven't talked about this all year, and it's because they didn't make any games. So it's sad. So I had to give it low, and that left me with an overall score of 3 out of 10. I love this game. The graphics are phenomenal, and it's how tennis is going to get started, like a real tennis game.
Right.
So yeah, it's great.
That's awesome. I mean, I love the video brain already, but hearing that sounds like it was super fun. Audience tracking the ball. That's so cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel like games today barely do that.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, maybe there's some, but I know what you mean. But let's keep moving and finish off the Video Brain games for 78. We have two more here. The first one is Vice Versa, which is just an adaptation of a game that's similar to Go or Gomoku. Restricts you from making illegal moves and has 5 difficulties to play against. Also created by Dr. Arthur Samuel. And it seems pretty visually similar to Checkers, just kind of different game rules and AI. Still pretty cool though. Nice to have some different variations in there. And then the last one that we have isn't too much of a game, but it is Video Artist. It's another drawing tool for a computer type of thing, similar to other drawing programs that we've seen. Does have several different commands to let you mirror and duplicate what you're drawing in various ways. And also suggested that you could create a maze and have somebody try to complete it, sort of to make your own cat and mouse maze game if you wanted to. But there's no rules, so it's basically just a drawing game where you can kind of make stuff up if you want to.
Mm-hmm. And that's going to do it for us today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Please check out the Videobrain family computer because it's so obscure but so good. It is truly a hidden gem of computing, and I don't know if we're going to see it again, to be honest. I don't think I've seen it in my 79 research, although the research is not done. So this could be it, and I'm very sad if it is because Gladiator was phenomenal, and tennis is phenomenal, and pinball is good unless you don't want to get a seizure.
Right.
So, but had they continued making games for this system, like a significant number more, they would have just been incredible. By far better than any of the Holy Trinity computers at this time, and even way better than like the Kremenko Dazzler, which is supposed to like specialize in graphics essentially. It's just not even close.
Yeah. And just a perfect example of why we love doing this podcast and why we hope you're enjoying it too. You know the highlights of history, but we are here to show you everything in between and how amazing those unheard of things really are. So if you enjoy this, please make sure to follow us on Twitter, where we post announcements about our new episodes going up. Check out our website, where we have all of the information laid out of everything that we've covered before in a great visual timeline. And also make sure to send us an email if you have any questions.
And with that, we'll see you next week.
See y'all next time.